All right, now let's talk about Chapter 4, China, the Challenger. Okay? Based upon our beginning of the semester survey, most of you guys said that, among these Asian economies, China is definitely the most interesting for you guys, which is kind of, what I expected, given what happened in the past 2 decades, especially the past few years. Okay? Even before the outbreak of the coronavirus, I believe China has already been, like under the spot, okay, on the world stage, under the spotlight. I'm sorry, and I think you know if you look at our news medias, TV programs, um, and even the daily conversations among people, you would find that China is probably the most commonly mentioned country other than the US. Okay? And there's no doubt that US China relationship is going to be the most important bilateral relationship, okay, between the two countries in this century. Okay? And the relationship between the two countries would probably shape not just the economic development of the two economies, but also will go beyond, have the global influence upon other economies. Okay? And you can also find that people have different attitude, different viewpoints. Um, when they discuss China. Okay, sometimes it could be fundamental difference. Okay? Like some people may take China as the U.S. friend. Okay, some people would say no, 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 it's actually the U.S. enemy. Okay, the biggest threat for the U.S. national security. Some may say, it could be friend me. By that we mean, in some areas, China could be the friend. In other words, there could be some cooperations between the two countries. But in other areas, China might be like the enemy, okay, or the threat. Okay? Or some people would say that China, they would consider China as a major competitor of the U.S. on the global market. Okay? No matter which way you want to look at China, I think it's always good and helpful to have a good understanding of China, okay? Including its economy, politics, culture, history. Okay, I think even you take China as the enemy, again, I think it's still helpful to understand what kind of enemy China is or competitor, right? All right. Now here, I would encourage you to pause the video and think about, when you look at China and the U.S., what will be the biggest difference in your mind? Okay, these two countries, what would be the biggest influence, biggest difference? I'm sorry, in your mind. Okay. All right, and let's come back and continue our discussion. Now, you may talk about a lot of different things, okay? Um, race, for example, okay? The size of the economies, right? Geographical location, history, a lot of things, okay? But I guess among these things, one is probably about the government, okay? So, or the political regime, or the ideology, okay? What they believe, okay, or their values might be different from American values or beliefs, okay? Now, that's why here we're gonna start our discussion about China with the role of the state in China's history, okay? And here, I already posted this TED Talk on our Moodle page. Okay, it's from Martin Jacks, and you can also Google, understanding the rise of China. I think it's also available on YouTube, okay, and TED. Um, if you haven't had a chance to check out that TED Talk, please stop here and go check out that one, okay, before you continue this QRL video, okay, because what we're going to discuss here is built upon that TED Talk, all right? Okay, so here I'm assuming that you already check out the TED Talk, and I'm gonna give you a quick review of the 3 building blocks Martin Jacks mentioned. Okay, the first one is he said China, different from many Western economies, is actually a civilization state instead of a nation state. Okay. That simply means the political value or the priority Chinese people believe is quite different from what Westerners believed. For example, they would probably put unity before many other things, or you could say before anything else. In other words, they believe China needs to stay together. I'm talking about all different parts of China. Okay, so you could say economic parts, geographical parts, or um, athletic parts. Right? They have to stay together, okay, as a whole, as a even like a family, right? And they share the same civilization, so they believe that they should be just one country instead of several or even many. Okay. The second thing is a notion of race, because in China, more than 92% of Chinese population is Han. Okay, it's the primary ethnic groups. And so, when they look at many issues, not just ethnic issues, but even, like diversity, inclusion, these are quite different. Okay, they have different perspectives or viewpoints. And the third thing is a relationship between the state and its society. Okay, and using Martin Jack's words, Chinese people often take their government as part of the family, but not just part of the family, even the head of the family. Okay, so again, they have a much closer relationship with their government, and they have a much higher level of trust in their government, which again is another fundamental difference between China and US or many other Western economies. In the West, people usually, dislike government or believe that the smaller the government, the better the market, or the better we are. Okay, and so we would like to introduce all kinds of, um, checks and balances in our bureaucratic system. Okay, so that the government decisions or policies won't go out of control. We would also emphasize the freedom of speech so that everybody could criticize what the government does. Okay, but again, you would find this is not the case in China. Okay, not just today, but even in its history. All right. And here I would continue encourage you guys to think about these 3 building blocks and their applications when we understand China, its economy and beyond. Okay, and during our meeting we can have more in-depth discussion about these. Okay, like each of these, what does that mean? How does that help you understand, the U.S.-China dispute? Okay. Again, economically, politically, and other things. Okay? And here we would also like to make a comparison between the Europe and China. Okay, and in Europe, we find that in the year 1600, there were 500 countries in Europe. And even today, when we look at the 20th and 21st century, there are 20 some nations in Europe, right? But in China, you would find for most of the time in its history, it was governed by a single unit. Okay, so it's unified. Okay, for most of the time. And why is that? We wonder. Okay, so for the given like the land area, why in some areas of the world we find it has been divided into many small countries, but in other areas it's it has only one country, a big country like China. Okay, so here we're going to show you this. This is the Europeans' wheat production, okay, 2010 to 2014 average. So the darker the color, you would find these are the most productive wheat areas in Europe. Okay, as you could see, these dark green areas, they are separate from each other. So you see several, pretty productive wheat areas in Europe, right? Now, why is that? Like they kind of scattered around in Europe. Here we show you the elevation map. In other words, here on the map, the brown or dark brown area means high elevation. Simply speaking, these are the mountains. Okay, so as you could say that the European continent has been separated into small pieces by these mountains. Okay, so when you look at the green area, that means the more fertile land, flat land where people could do agricultural production. Again, the green, relatively green, flatter areas are separated by these big mountains. Okay, now when you look at these and compare it with the wheat production, you would understand why it's separated. Okay, these productive areas are separated, okay, geographically. All right, when we look at China, here is the China's agricultural production areas. Okay, again, the darker means more productive. Okay, and you would find that it concentrates to the east coastal area of China. Okay, now here what we're showing you is the Qing's ruling area. Qing is the first dynasty in China's history that went all the way back to 221 to 206 BC. Okay, now here you see this shaded area is what's controlled by the Qing dynasty or its government, but this dashed line shows as the current territory of China. Okay, so you would find that the first dynasty of China controlled a much smaller area, and most of these areas are just the most fertile lands in China. Okay, so again, when we compare these two, we would have a better understanding why China today exists as a big country. Okay, as one big country, because their fertile lands are concentrating together instead of being separated by mountains and other geographical barriers. All right, so here we would like to ask you guys to think about if this is the good news or bad news for Chinese economic development. Okay, now some clues you can rely upon Adam Smith in think about these, or you can rely upon the theory of political development, which we discussed when we looked at the Meiji Restoration. Okay, so during our class discussion, we're gonna explore these things more in depth. Okay, is this have a very strong single government, the central government controls everything. Is that good or bad for China's economic development? All right.